Hi, it's Gene from the maverickstar Observatory. Just been listening to the Cobra meeting outcome here in the UK. Boris Johnson and his chief scientific advisor and another guy, I can't remember what his job was, but he got a strange haircut anyhow. He needs to do what I do, shave it. Okay, putting that aside, we need to start saving people's lives, and the British government here have decided to flush the inevitable, and what I mean by that is they're going to do pretty much nothing, and they will do nothing, I guarantee that. And what I've just heard the British government suggest with regards to the elderly and the most vulnerable is at a later date, quarantine yourself during that period. And if you wait till that later date, it'll be too late for you. This is killing the vulnerable over 60 and those with the weak immune systems, and so on and so forth. They have, however, come clean about one thing, and that is that there could be 5,000 to 10,000 people at this present time, even though there's only 590 confirmed with COVID-19, possibly carrying it in the UK. And we knew that it was covering up the numbers. But what they've decided to do is not restrict any flights, not close down any schools, and pretty much do nothing. And I mean absolutely nothing. And what they've turned around and offered people is pretty much nothing as well. They've said, look after yourselves, isolate yourselves for 7 days. 7 days isn't enough to start with, and by telling the most vulnerable right now, with the knowledge that there might be 5,000 to 10,000 people carrying coronavirus in this country, is putting them at serious risk of loss of life. So you can help me try and save some people's lives, and not just here in the UK. I'm on about globally. These people, the elderly, I mean, I've got 2 parents myself. I've been trying to convince them, because we are a big family of 5 children. I've got 3 sisters, a brother, and there are probably around about 13 grandchildren. And my parents' house has a lot of traffic in the week with various people visiting them. They're very much loved. And I have tried to approach them a few times over the last few days and say, look, you really need to stop the traffic going in and out your house, because you're both in your 70s, and at least one of you has in recent years overcome cancer, and I would definitely class them both as vulnerable, and I don't want to lose them. And I have a feeling, as I've said, if they get coronavirus, that they may not survive. I put it point blank to them, and I pleaded with them, not to let these people continue coming down, because every time that happens, there is a risk that they may catch this coronavirus. Now, we've just heard the British government, as I've told people freely on this channel, that there is going to be 93% or more of the population that are going to get coronavirus, and the government know this. That, like I say, we're going on what Andy, my friend on Andology's channel, who I've done a podcast recently with, he's got some algorithms. He's an electronics engineer and a whiz at programming, and he can build these modelling systems. He's got the same modelling systems as what the government have right now, and it predicts that in June the majority of the British population have got coronavirus or have had it already. And I don't think waiting till a closer period of time where we're getting closer to the peak that we tell these vulnerable people to isolate themselves. We need to do it now in order to save more lives. These people need to isolate themselves now. I've tried to get that through to my parents, and I'm a scientist. They do respect my knowledge, but I was told, look, Gene, everything is taken care of. We've got our funerals all paid for. You know, we're in good financial state, and you know, if we get it, pretty much we're going to get it, and there's nothing that we can do to stop that. But there is, you know. I don't know how I'm going to convince other people if I can't even convince my own parents to, take some precautions. So, at least we can tell people this. If you wait until, there are more people with the virus than 10,000 possible at the moment, then your chances of getting it right then and waiting for the government to tell you to self-isolate, I believe, it's going to be futile for you if you're vulnerable and you're over 60. What I would do right now is, if you're serious about living, is get in touch with your family members, tell them that you're going to quarantine yourself right now, and remember the peak is in June. That's here in the UK. It will be depending on the population size of your country and other things. Yeah, it could come at a different time, but right now what we do know is that the virus eventually, as long as it doesn't keep mutating, will burn itself out. So there will be a point in the future where it's okay to come out of isolation. But we are dealing with a killer and a global pandemic, and it's been only just now admitted. We knew weeks ago that this was a pandemic, and that many people were going to lose their lives as a result of it. I've just sat there and watched the Prime Minister of the UK say he's going to do nothing. He's not going to shut down the flights. He's going to let this go full steam, go full cycle as fast as it can, and they're going to try and deal with it as they can. And I know people are going to disagree with me, because I know what the Prime Minister has just said and his advisors, that they are trying to break it down into smaller segments so that there isn't a massive rush on the NHS system. It doesn't make no difference. There's going to be in any case. And I do agree with him on one point, that the majority of the population are going to get coronavirus at some point in the near future. But we don't need to just sit by and let the elderly people and the vulnerable people of our country and the rest of the world, just sit there and take it and die. We don't need to do that. I am pissed off at the lack of anything from this government. They are saying they're going to set up funds for this. If people have got small businesses, they're going to look after them with low interest loans. Are you kidding me? Low interest loans. You're responsible for allowing this to happen in this country in the first place because of your failure to act earlier on, right? The liability lies with the governments of this country and other countries, and we can all point the finger at China, right? But we pay, as taxpayers, our government in this country. It's their duty to protect us against things like this, and they didn't shut down one single flight. I believe that everybody that was trying to get back into the UK, after we knew there was a problem in China, should have proved that they was clean to come back into this country before they attempted to. They shouldn't have just been let back in this country. That's how the infection has got to where it is right now. And the onus is on the government. They had a duty of care to protect the British people, and they have failed as far as I'm concerned. And they have failed terribly. And we know that they paid out compensation for mad cow disease, people that died of that, and I know someone that died of that. And we know that that the government paid compensation to them because of the lack of them doing something which they could have done at an earlier stage. And this is what we're looking at now, right now, guys. So, the government are going to get sued to high heavens regardless of this, for the loss of people's loved ones. But again, it isn't about money. It's about right now trying to save people's lives. And the only way we can do that is by protecting them ones that we love, and trying to convince them that the best measure is right now is to isolate them. Yeah, and we need to do this in a specific manner so that because even if they live on their own, right? Like I said the other day, The postman puts the letters through the door. You have to protect against that risk of touching that envelope as he's been coughing and sneezing, handling everybody's letters. We have to protect against that. If there's parcels that need to be signed for, then you don't want to be signing for them yourself if you're over 60 and you're a vulnerable person. Yeah, you just clearly just tell him to leave the parcel on the floor. You're not going to sign it because you don't want to take a risk. And then at some point, spray that parcel and disinfect it, and then bring it into your house. These are the things that we need to start to design right now in order to protect these people, or protect yourselves if you are these vulnerable people. Or the only other alternative is accept fate and just die. Is that an option for you? Is that what you want? I'm angry because the British government have just pacified the nation with their bullshit, and they're not prepared to do a single thing meaningful. In fact, what their analogy is just let the virus take hold, let it run riot, and we'll pick up the pieces after. That's okay for some, but it won't be for others. Those that lose their loved ones, those that lose their partners, you know, that they've been married to for a prolonged period of time, you just can't put a price on that. No compensation will replace that loved one. So, you know, what I'm saying now is take action right now, right? Get your young ones in the family to supply you your needs, you know, work together, try and come up with a plan where you can isolate yourselves now. You know, we're not too far away from June, the peak of the virus. You know, if you have to isolate yourself for 6 months, does it really matter? Can you not see the benefits of isolating yourself for 6 months in your own home, right, and then being there for perhaps many years afterwards for your loved ones? That's the be all and end all of it. But I am like gobsmacked. I've watched the outplay of the circus of the British government, and they've promised low interest rate loans for businesses. You try and sell that to the business owner. I was watching a business owner the other day that lost 45 grand in business because of this already. Yeah, and then you offer him a loan at low interest rates only, when it was your responsibility as a government to protect this happening in the first place, which you failed miserably, because you should have banned flights, you should have banned shipping, tourist holidays and things like that from day one, and you knew about this weeks and weeks ago, and yet you did nothing at all to stop it, and now you're doing nothing to stop it. You've put aside 30 billion, which is nothing in comparison to what you should be spending in order to protect those people, those vulnerable. You know, the British government right now, the Boris Johnson, has just let the nation down with his response to just let flights continue to come into the country with contaminated people and contaminate pretty much. Anyhow, I'm not going to go on, guys. You know, that's it pretty much in a nutshell. We can save people. You've all got loved ones who ever watch this. You know, you can do something more than what Boris Johnson is about to attempt to do, which is pretty much nothing. Yeah, he just wants to let the virus burn itself out, and it will in good time in any case. But you know what we face is in June, nearly about, I don't know, off the top of my head, about 40 million people wanting emergency service and having coronavirus. You know, he's just literally with his actions killed people, but just not yet. You know, more needs to be done. You know, you really need to sit down with your families. I mean, we've all got elderly people that we love, and we don't want them to disappear. And we've just seen the government turn around to us and say, you know, self-isolate, you look after yourself or piss off, basically. So, you know, there you go. It is never a surprise in this day and age when you see the actions of these elite, because they really don't care. And I think that just today proves it. At least Donald Trump has banned flights into his country, so you know there is a control method in place, you know, to stop further increases and acceleration in the virus. At least he's did that. The British government didn't do that today. They just let the people down. Guys, there's a link down there if you want to support what we do here at the maverickstar Observatory. If you want to talk more about on how we can save people's lives, things we can do to isolate our loved ones and protect them if they're willing to do that. And I'm even struggling to do that with my own parents, but you know, I'm not going to give up with them. You know, I'm going to try and make them see that, you know, you can still see your relatives on Skype, Vimeo. There is lots of things, isn't there, guys? You know, WhatsApp. You can all have these free video calls and still see your loved ones. You know, you can still take things round to your parents, just leave them at the front door, just let them know that when they take them in there, they've got to wipe them all down, clean them all up, make sure that there's no virus contained on those things that you're taking round there. You know, make sure that when they're taking the post, that they're wearing gloves and some, you know, form of protection. We don't have to let them die, guys, is what I'm saying. You know, that's what the British government want to do. They just want to let them die. They're waiting till almost the peak, and then they're going to tell these elderly people to isolate themselves. By then they'll have already had it. There will be people that will have already lost their lives by that point in time. So anyhow, there is a link there if you want to help do what we help try and do in any case. You know, support the observatory, support what we do. We're trying to help people, save people's lives, and you know, we may even be hopefully saving someone that you have, you know, that you've watched this video and you know you've took the initiative to, you know, take measures and act. So that's what it requires. It doesn't require people to sit on their arse and do nothing. Anyhow, you know, I'm just so upset about the government's actions or lack of actions that, you know, it won't be a surprise when they start getting the lawsuits come through at a later point of this year for the lack of actions that they could have done to save lives, and at that point it will be provable, you know. So maybe we'll talk about liability in tomorrow's video. Anyway, I'll catch you later, guys. As always, take care of your loved ones, and as always, bye for now.